What do you want to see out of Steven Nelson tonight?
You know, I just want to see Steven Nelson control the whole ring. You know, don't fall asleep, dictate the pace, be first, counterpunch. You know, this young man, he has all the skills in the world. You know, the thing that stands out to me is that he's 32 years old. And I know he got a late start in the game, Tess. I understand that. But, you know, time waits on no man. I believe right now that he's ready to face a top contender and possibly fight for a world championship.
DeAndre Ware, we told you, the full-time firefighter. Works at the Toledo Fire and Rescue Department. Works 24-hour shifts, gets up so early to get in his road work. His first appearance fighting in Vegas, and he does so in the bubble. Right hands that time that Nelson timed as both men opened up.
See, I like that from Nelson. Nelson just taking his time, shooting his jab out there, letting things develop. But like Ware right now, Tess, is looking to counterpunch. You know, that's why you see both guys waiting. He's looking to counterpunch Nelson.
As many fighters who fight in the bubble have, Ware is coming off a career-long layoff. A year and 14 days since his last fight. It was a TKO loss last August 23rd against Vladimir Shishkin.
Well, Ware told us that he was in tremendous shape during the fighter meetings. He said he ran the most he's ever ran before. He said he ran about 8 miles. You know, he slowly built up to it.
He doesn't know anything but hard work, right, Timmy?
Pick up the pace. Yeah, Tess, but I expect him to pick up the pace. It's the first round, you know, so it's a fill-out round. Good body shot right there.
And that one effective right hand that highlighted that first round for Steven Nelson when it buckled DeAndre Ware. Watch how close that knee comes, by the way, to hitting the canvas after that right hand.
You know what? It was actually a right with a right. And you see Ware, he throws his right hand, but he keeps his head right on the line. See how his knee almost touched the ground. If that knee would have hit the floor, that would have been called a knockdown. But all that running helped him stay on his feet. He got some strong legs tonight.
You showed him everything now. It's you. Work that jab, beat first. He telegraphing, so that check hook is there.
Lamar Wright Jr., the trainer for DeAndre Ware, 32-year-old from Toledo, Ohio.
One thing to note about Nelson is that he got a 75-inch reach. You know, that's a long reach for 5'10". That's a long reach. Well, super middleweight. So he's able to dictate pace with his jab, stay out at distance, use quick in and out movement, change levels on his opponent.
I talked about Nelson being better than what he looks like sometimes at first glance. It's the small movements. It's the little those small nuanced things that he does, the feints that really don't jump out. They're not going to make a Sports Center top 10, but they may set up a Sports Center top 10. They'll get him in position to land the shots that he needs to land and pile up points and get wins, and that's all Steven Nelson has done throughout the course of his career.
To piggyback on that, Dre, you gotta know what you want to do first. Then just have a counter in your back pocket. You know, that's being a step ahead. Now, if you want to be 2 steps ahead, then you can be like, you know, do like some of the greats do. You know, you want to stay calm to be able to see it. Might drop that feint. Then you don't react to it. Then you come back to it later in the fight when he's least expecting it and make him pay and hurt him and get him up out of there.
There's some blood coming down the left side of the
ahead.
face of Steven Nelson. You can see a stream of blood coming from above the eye.
Ware's just not throwing enough punches. Nelson's right in front of him. He just got to let his hands go. He got to believe in himself.
See Nelson clawing at that.
So Steven Nelson was supposed to be the fighter that was boxing, and DeAndre Ware was supposed to be pressing forward, and it's the opposite right now. We see Nelson pressing the issue, and DeAndre Ware's got to shake off the nerves and get going, like you said, Tim.
Yeah, Dre, there's fighters out there, man, that every time they step up in level in class or even competition, they lose. They can't function. Sometimes that has to do with skill and ability. You know, a lot of other times it has to do with just your mental toughness. I mean, self-doubt is toxic for anybody, especially a fighter.
Yeah. Thank you. I was pretty sure.
Hey, you let me be first. See?
Perfect.
Be first. And once you got him, once you start pushing.
Yeah, you can tell him when you're over there. Okay.
That's the clash of heads that opens up that cut on the outside above the left eye of Steven Nelson. And that is what referee Jane Nady was confirming when you watched him go back to that corner. It was a right hand by DeAndre Ware as well in that second round.
Yeah. That's what we worked on in the gym, see?
Nady came over to confirm with Bob Bennett and Robert Byrd that it had been an accidental headbutt. That was confirmed, and from the looks of it, Levi Smith was working the cut. It's really on the outside part between the ear and the eye, so it shouldn't be a big deal.
Should not compromise his vision in that left eye, as Nady will now have to untangle them. Early break in round 3. Through 2 rounds, Nelson enjoys a 35-26 connect advantage.
You know, Tim, I'm not ready to write DeAndre Ware off just yet as a fighter who wasn't able to step up in competition. You know, it's still early. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 rounds. I've been there in some of my biggest fights where you're thinking more than you're fighting. And DeAndre Ware, yes, he's a thinking fighter, but he's more a fighter of reaction and will and skill. You see him slowly starting to get going in this 3rd round.
Oh, Dre, he's slowly starting to get going because guess what? He sees blood. And when a fighter sees blood, he's like a bull. You know, it energizes him. And that's what we're seeing from Ware.
Good thing for Steven Nelson that the cut is in the right spot, if there is such a thing. It's on the side of the eye. It's not at the top of the eye, where if it gets bad or gets worse, it's not going to bleed into the eye. But these are things as a young fighter you got to overcome, because if you're talking about facing champions for 12 rounds against guys who have a lot of skill, they got just as much will, and they're hungry like you are, you're going to have to learn how to face adversity and get through it. He's facing a little bit of adversity right now.
Watch your heads. Watch your heads.
You see, though, yeah, I was just going to say that head, Nady said it for me. Those heads are coming really close together. Every time you see Nelson step in and try to go down to the body, Ware steps in as well with his head.
Steven Nelson is doing the right thing. He's not pawing at the blood around his eye. He doesn't seem to be bothered, and that's how you respond to a cut. You go back to the corner, you let the corner man do his job, and you focus on doing your job while the round is going forward.
Well, the biggest issue right now that I'm having with Ware is he's not using his jab. He's sitting directly in front of Nelson. Nelson's moving side to side and trying to establish his jab and reach. But Ware's just standing right in front, not shooting a jab. Nice combination right there by him. Every time he works his hand, he has success, ladies and gentlemen.
End of 3 of our co-feature, scheduled for 10 before we get to our championship fight with Jamel Herring and Jonathan Akendo. Let's remind you of what is coming your way with Top Rank, the upcoming schedule. Egas Kavaliauskas is in action next week. Jose Pedraza, Javier Molina should be a good one. And then Mark Kriegel on September 26th. It's the other part of the 140-pound equation with a mandatory title defense for Josh Taylor. Josh Taylor, who's quite outspoken this week after the thin decision survival from Jose Ramirez.
Know that it's been out there that the unification could be before the new year. Based on the conversations I'm having, I think it's a little ambitious. It's probably a fight that needs a crowd. And Ramirez, as Robert Garcia made clear to us yesterday, talking about the Postal fight, really feeds off a crowd. So does Taylor, whose perfect world this fight takes place at the Edinburgh Castle.
It's interesting to hear all the different reactions to Ramirez's decision victory against Victor Postal. It was a majority decision. Scores were 114, 114, and then a 15-13 and a 16-12. And then last night we're visiting with Robert Garcia, of course, the trainer of Ramirez, and he said, you guys know what it's like when he fights back home. 14, 15,000, all the family riding that wave of support. And Dre, he felt it just totally took everything out of Jose Ramirez. That of all the fighters we've seen so far in the bubble, it was the unified champion who was most impacted.
Well, I don't think it was just the crowd, Joe. I think that was part of it. I also think you got to give some credit to the veteran Victor Postal. And then the other aspect of it was you have a fighter who is, you know, a guy who's going to press the issue, whether he's in sparring or whether he's in a real fight. He takes punishment. He dishes punishment out. He's had multiple delays with his fight with Victor Postal. You start to get stale. I don't care how mindful you are of your training. That had a lot to do with it. And of course, the trainer doesn't want to acknowledge that, but you got to factor that in. I think if Ramirez had, you know, the normal 8-week period without the delays, I think he would have been a little sharper.
Steven Nelson with 2-punch combination to the body moments ago, and now right hand trying to get to the body from Ware.
And to that point, Joe, if you read the bio leading up to that fight with Postal, Postal didn't quite do as much training. He wasn't in camp, you know, as long as Jose Ramirez was, because he's an older fighter. When you get older, you start to train smarter, not harder. Ramirez is still young, so he's pressing the issue in camp. He's sparring against tough guys like Virgil Ortiz. That starts to wear you down.
Very interesting point.
Step back. Now we box. Thank you. Watch your head. Watch your heads. Stop. Let go. Step back.
Try to time that right uppercut.
DeAndre Ware is not fighting up to his potential tonight. He needs to take that word that's on the front of his trunks, faith, and he needs to believe in his ability tonight because he's got that deer in the headlights kind of look that we talk about often where he seems like the moment is just a little too big for him. He's a better fighter than what he's showing thus far.
Every time you step up in class, Dre, that's just what happens. You got to believe in yourself.
Stop. Break. Box.
Steven Nelson, part of the Bud Crawford Omaha camp. And guess who's ringside with Bernard?
Terrence Crawford, he's broadcasting live to all his social media followers. Terrence, everybody wants to know, when will we see you back in the ring?
Hopefully November. That's the plan.
You know, initially you said you didn't want to fight in the bubble. This is your first visit to the bubble. You're not fighting, but what are your thoughts now about fighting without fans?
I don't know. It's just like it's a sparring match, you know, but we professionals, we got to do what we got to do at the end of the day. And a fight is a fight.
Kell Brook is a name that's being mentioned. Is that who you expect to fight?
That's what they said, who was at the top of the list. So if it's Kell Brook that I'm fighting, it's Kell Brook that I'm fighting.
I know that whether it is Steve Nelson or Jamel Herring, they love seeing you here because you're the leader of that pack in Omaha. What are your thoughts on what Steve Nelson's doing right now, being cut for the first time as a pro?
Oh, he's in the fight right now. You know, the guy that he's fighting is very patient. He's catching Steven, coming in with a lot of shots. But at the same time, Steven is winning the fight, and he got to make a few adjustments, but he'll make them in the later rounds.
Now, you're an extension of Bomac. We've seen that when you're out there giving instructions. What are your instructions to Steve right now?
Oh, he need to come behind the jab, not coming straight in more. And I think you need to go to the body a little more and stop pulling out.
Appreciate your time. Look forward to seeing you soon, Terrence.
Thank you.
And according to reports, soon may be 2 weeks into November against the former welterweight champion, Kell Brook, who of course took on the immense challenge of going up 2 divisions to fight Triple G, then came back down to welterweight and had the fight against Errol Spence. That was an 11th round TKO. Originally took the belt off of Sean Porter. That could be next for the 36-0 pound-for-pound elite welterweight champion, Terrence Bud Crawford. Right now the focus for Bud is not about his future, but about his good friend and teammate Steven Nelson. And then coming up in our main event, Jamel Herring with a title defense, who also trains with the Crawford camp.
Again, I'm seeing a guy in Ware that has skills, has ability. You can see it. You can see it, but he just doesn't believe it right now. He's falling short. You know, he's falling victim to the self-doubt. And I'm going to continue to say this. The way you get rid of that self-doubt, ladies and gentlemen, you have to try, you have to receive. You know, self-doubt robs us of life from knowing how great we really can be or is. You know what I'm saying? So when you train, you must be willing to go to places very few people are willing to go. And Ware said he did that, but he doesn't believe it.
Nothing low. Nothing low.
Good attack here in round 5 from Nelson. By the way, we mentioned the fact that the clash of heads opened up a cut. You see him pawing above that left eye here, more affected in round 5, and they're going to take time as Jay Nady. First time cut as a pro. And it looks like there's now a second cut that actually is on the eye.
Yes.
Get back in that corner and stay there.
And this is a far worse cut. And it comes from a clash again.
Pull that camera back. Time in. Box.
The reason why that happened is both guys, they come in with their head when they're shooting punches to the body. I mean, I'm familiar with head clashes because I used to do the same thing. The same exact thing until I had to learn the right way to go down to the body. You have to get your head off the line, then attack the body, either right or left. if you keep your head dead center, headbutts are going to happen.
First time he's been cut in his professional career, but we have discussed this with him before. He was cut once in the amateurs, not wearing headgear, fighting in Venezuela, fighting a southpaw. This is two righties, and yet we're getting the continuous clash of heads. They have a lot of work to deal with this cut.
Regardless of that headbutt, you're still winning. You're still kicking his ass, okay? All right? Oh, Doc, I could have scooped down.
You gotta stay on this. It's goddamn hard for both you guys to be on the apron there.
Hey, keep doing what you're doing, all right? And he's gonna get desperate, and he's gonna try to work on that cut anyway, okay? So keep your left hand high. Keep it high. You go downstairs, then come back upstairs, okay? Stay in that rhythm. Stay in the rhythm, all right? Just like you got your eyes closed and you just boxing. But you gotta box smart with your hands.
If he starts bothering him, I'm gonna do something.
Gotta box smart with your hands up, okay? Clean his eye out.
You can hear the conversation between Dr. David Obert and referee Jay Nady of concern with now that second cut. And they want to monitor the vision of Steven Nelson. Dre, it was interesting also to hear Brian McIntyre, Bomac, the trainer of Steven Nelson, saying just like you're in the rhythm, just like you're boxing with your eyes closed.
Well, great coach. They don't really acknowledge what's going on. They let the cut man do what they have to do. They may briefly acknowledge if you got knocked down or if you're dealing with a cut, but they have to stay on mission and stay on task. And that's what you heard McIntyre doing. He's keeping his young fighter focused on the goal at hand, which is to get this win and try to stop DeAndre Ware, because Steven Nelson is not just trying to win this fight tonight. He's trying to send a message to the rest of the division that he's championship material.
And just as a reminder, the first clash of heads that opened up the cut to the outside, the more innocuous. There's a good right hand from Nelson, as now he ramps things up, seeing his own blood a bit, as right hands are getting through the guard of Ware. First clash happened in the second round. Second clash happened in the fifth round. And of course, here we are in round 6. So if this fight is stopped because of those cuts, we will go to the scorecards.
Let go. Stop. Break. Box.
This is exactly the rhythm that Bomac wants from his fighter. He wants to get, to constantly hit Ware, keep the pressure on him, and wear him down, and eventually catch him and possibly get him up out of there.
It's good work from Nelson here in the first half of this 6th round, and there's a left hand that sends him back. Wobbly legs for Ware. Nelson on the attack here in round 6. And Ware's going to tie up.
Nelson's got it. Yeah, he's got to step back, Joe, and give himself some space and not allow Ware to tie him up and buy time to recover. Get space and land another good shot, a head shot, a body shot, but he won't be able to get that good shot in there if he allows Ware to tie him up and buy time.
Ware doesn't look good at all. Wobbly legs, circling on the outside, gets sent back. Here comes Steven Nelson, trying to finish things, and that'll do it. TKO victory, Steven Nelson. And maybe that second cut brought out the best in him.
There was a huge sense of urgency in Nelson. Maybe the cuts caused him to go to the next level. But beautiful hooks right there, catching Ware, that got him in trouble. And here's the follow-up shot right here. Coming around the guards. That left hook right there is what gave him the little stanky leg. Wobbled those legs. And here's the follow-up shot, the cleanup crew. Nelson tonight, he showed resiliency, even though He was bleeding from the eye. He was cut in 2 places. You know, sometimes you never know how your fighter is going to react until something happens. You know, Nelson behaved like a fighter tonight. He behaved like a champion tonight. You know, he stayed the course through the fight, listened to his coach, and got a beautiful stoppage. I believe Nelson is ready to face a top contender and also possibly face one of the belt holders. When I asked him during the fighter meeting, I said, who do you want? Who do you want? And he said he wants to fight